Hi guys. I had an interesting conversation with Jamie Quantrill. Jamie is the co-founder of Brands in Motion, and Brands in Motion is a platform for putting out motion design work within the branding space. And we had a conversation ranging from how Brands in Motion started to his thoughts about motion within branding, and also where he sees it going in the next few years. We also had conversation around their plans for expansion. So it was an interesting one, which I enjoyed, and I'd love you to have a look at it. So let's just quickly dive in. Can you just tell us a bit about yourself? Just a bit about yourself, your creative journey that has led you to this point so far.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm a freelance brand designer specializing in branding, motion, and digital. I graduated from Falmouth Uni 8 years ago now. So I've been doing it for full time, properly paid for 8 years. I spent a year at a studio in East London called White Bear, and then I spent 4.5 years at another agency called JKR before leaving London and moving to Bristol. And I spent 2.5 years at a taxi studio before going out on my own freelance from June this year. So it's been, yeah, 5 months. And then I also co-founded a page called Brands in Motion with Winston Duke, where we highlight and celebrate the best motion design within branding.
Yeah. Sounds good. And nice you touched brands in motion because that's how I got to know about you. And it's
Mm.
wonderful work you guys doing there. I mean, I'm always looking forward to seeing the next project you highlight. What inspired brands in motion, and how you also mentioned Winston Duke has been. How did the partnership start? I mean, how did brands in motion start, and how did the partnership with Winston, and how has that been so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really good. I think so. It started like like many good things and some bad things during the pandemic. So it started back in 2020. And Winston and I used to work together at JKR. So Winston is a senior motion designer now at Wolf Hollands. And he was in the motion team at the time at JKR. And I was, my background is predominantly in branding, or was in branding. But I used to dabble a bit in motion at uni, and I kind of wanted to learn a bit more how to do things. So our kind of friendship sort of struck up from me going over to Winston and bothering him and asking him, how do you do this or how do you do that? Or can you give me any tips and tricks? And he would sort of like show me some stuff and then tell me to go away and get on because he got work to do. But then we kind of were talking, and I kind of said, like, I asked him basically, is there anything that kind of showcased motion but purely in branding? So there was a lot of stuff that did sort of UI, UX application, a lot of stuff that did character animation, but nothing that was specific to branding. And we used to work in a way that you'd find bits of visual inspiration for different sections before you build out a brand. And motion was always the hardest place to find good, relevant inspiration and reference for. So I messaged him and just asked and said, this was over Slack because we were working from home in the pandemic, and just said, um, is there a space for this? Is there a space like this? He kind of said, not really that I can think of. So we just said, well, why don't we start one? And we pretty much just started by posting every day, just posting cool stuff we'd seen, stuff that inspired us. So um, it was all kind of stuff we both saved on Instagram. We sent each other stuff, and, oh, this is cool. Can we post it? And we're like, yeah, let's do it. And then it's kind of almost grown really organically. People have found it really useful, basically, which is really rewarding for us. And now we're at a point where we get sent like so much great work, that it's almost the work now comes to us. Obviously, we still see amazing things online and on Instagram to kind of share and post, but now we're in a really fortunate position of people are kind of reaching out and sending us amazing projects that they've done. And it feels like motion within the branding space is definitely sort of the place to be right now. It has been for a little while now.
Yeah. Um, so you mentioned that you guys started out with what you saved. How is the process now for the works you put out? Is it still do you still use what you saved, or do you have like a channel where things pass through stuff like that? Then you use.
Sort of, yeah. We kind of still find things online, find things ourselves, but then we also reach out to people if we see the work and they send it to us. But also they will send us press packs and just say, "What do you think of this?" And we'll kind of go off a gut feel a lot of the time. There's a couple of, I guess, there's a few criteria that we kind of adhere to. One is that the motion kind of has to be a part of the kind of concept of the brand. So it's quite easy to make things move in a bolt on the end, but you can almost tell the projects that have kind of had it seeded in from early doors, and it almost is the kind of idea behind the visual. So that's the kind of main thing we look out for, I think, is does this motion feel like it kind of enhances the brand rather than just adds a bit of polish? Um, and does it kind of, I guess, cover both fields in that? Is it a really high quality, amazing looking, thought out branding project? And is the motion um, equally as kind of interesting and as kind of intricate? And I think that's kind of where Winston and I, with our differing experiences, we kind of bring a different view to things. So me from a branding background, I kind of look at a brand and think, wow, that looks really cool. And I'll see the motion. I'll be like, that's really amazing like that. And explain the brand in that way. But Winston coming from his motion side, he sees the motion and he'll be like, wow, this is really groundbreaking, that motion design. And he kind of sees it from that lens of like, I don't know how I would do this or how they've created this. But the motion is amazing. And it just happens to be linked to this brand. So we kind of bring that a different perspective. And then the kind of projects we try and post is when we both sort of feel like excited about them, basically, so that the brand kind of holds up and resonates and all makes sense. And then the motion as well is quite kind of impactful, has a solid rationale that you can kind of easily see and is kind of beautifully consistent as well. And when you get those two things, that's kind of amazing kind of stuff we're able to feature. And it's being produced by some awesome studios today.
Yeah, sounds good. I still have a couple of questions for Vans Emotion, but I just really want to quickly
Yeah, of
touch on.
course.
You mentioned you've been freelancing for about 5 months. How's it been so far? Has it been what you expected, or
It it hasn't. It hasn't. It's been really good, I'd say so far. I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in the kind of delivery of your kind of delivering all this work. You kind of need to stop and take stock. And if whenever I kind of take stock and look at it, I think yeah, it's gone and it's going really well. I think it's been slightly different in that it's been a bit of an anomaly at the start because I did a 4 week booking with an agency in London, which was really great and really a great start point right at the start. And then kind of since then, I've been working directly with my own clients, which I've been really enjoying. So I kind of assumed at first it would be a lot more bookings within studios where I kind of be booked there for a kind of 4 week block or 2 week block or whatever they need you for. But it's been quite a really good and interesting learning curve kind of working directly with my own clients. It gives you a bit more freedom in terms of how you uh, kind of spend your time and kind of your more delivery focused than time focused. So that's been really good. And also been able to work with a couple of really talented people on projects recently as well, which I can't wait to launch. So it's been a really good start. I'd say it's taking stock. It's kind of easy to kind of get swept up and not notice that things are going well. But it's been a good start. I just hope it kind of continues really.
yeah, sounds good. I will freelance earlier this month, so I'm hoping to
Nice.
have this same kind of experience in next 5 months or better, and definitely will
Yeah,
come to you
definitely.
for some tips where I need some. So yeah, that's actually good
Yeah,
to hear.
definitely.
Yeah, thank you. How would you back to brands in motion? Because I'm curious about a couple of
Mm,
things. How would you advise brands and designers to utilize the page? Because there are a lot of
mm,
projects on there and a lot of stuff, and it could be overwhelming for someone who is not properly guided. So, how would you advise,
mm.
from your own, from the idea you guys had while starting out? How would you advise brands and also designers on how to properly utilize the resources on there?
I think just follow, for first and foremost, follow the Instagram, I think, just as a start point, because we post every day, and the work posted is so varied that we try and um, not necessarily intentionally have a sort of style that we post. So again, it kind of meets that gut test of do we like it. So we kind of hope that anyone using the page will see something along the way that they like or find interesting or find inspiring, and then bookmark it and save it and just use it for a later date. That's kind of what I use. I actually use Brands in Motion for that. It's almost like a place to kind of save things from, a little resource where I think, oh, that would be great for this project, or right, that kind of notion, I kind of would love to see it with this project here, or that might be cool for something else, or that's a lovely bit of type or logo animation. So I think just going through and almost looking at things and being like, right, this might work for me here, or I wonder how they did that, or um, again, just seeing the kind of high quality and what people do with motion and in a brand project, and how can you start to bring that into whatever you're doing, in even just a small way. I think is a great start point to kind of um, bring those two worlds together.
Yeah, makes sense. Um, so what the motion system basically is basically about strategic motion, that's motion design, and systemizing motion design. What caught my attention with brands in motion is we have a lot of brands on there. I mean, it's just a lot in resources. I've really learned a ton from what you've as in going through brands in motion, so the studio website or agency and even the designers themselves has actually um really been helpful. And this question is even I'm even excited to ask you because you have a branding background. How would you say motion design, especially motion design that is intentional and is embedded in branding, how would you say it has changed how branding is done in the in the past few years, motion design within branding?
Mm. I think it's it's kind of allowed another dimension of concept. So before a brand idea or even a logo idea had to work in a flat 2D static way, which is totally fine. And we've seen some like amazing work come out of that. But I think what motion design does is it allows you to almost add that third dimension that when you look at the logo, you might not necessarily get the concept, but when it comes to life through motion, that can kind of really, I guess, bring another dimension to it and kind of show it in a totally different way. I think, for example, sort of taking the analogy I always think is like the Netflix end. It's like when you look at it, it's just an end. Like it's, you know, a nice end, nothing wrong with that. But when you kind of see it on the start screen of the app, it kind of opens up and you sort of see all those different threads. It's all the different stories that exist within it. That's a kind of really nice bit of meaning imbued into a very simplistic logo that's brought to life through motion. So I think that kind of thinking at an early stage and allowing motion to kind of be a part of that conceptual ideas stage of the project, I think is where we've kind of seen it change a lot. But then I guess more recently, the kind of, like you said, strategic, systematic motion design um, is becoming a lot more prominent for brands. So allowing kind of setting guidelines and rules that allow a level of consistency. Because when you do a brand guidelines, you set rules for the logo, you set rules for the colors, you set rules for what typefaces to use and how to use them. So it makes total sense to have rules for motion so that your brand A stands out from others when it appears on a screen. or in a digital space, um, and B, that when it does stand out, it's consistent across everything. So I think, yeah, conceptually at the start, bring another spin on ideas, and then kind of the rigorous, more implementation end where you kind of rationalize the motion theory of the brand, I think is the two, I guess the two that we look out for, but also the two I think that are most prominent, the kind of things that have changed definitely since I graduated and probably in the last few years looking at.
Mm. Yeah, sounds good. A follow up to the question would be, how would you advise brands now? So let's say business owners, not necessarily brands, business owners who are not so technical when it comes to design. How would you advise they strategically utilize motion design in their branding generally?
I guess as long as it's relevant to what you do, if your brand appears anywhere in a digital space, which most do, then you kind of need to be doing it. I think how to implement it is work with designers who either have motion capabilities or work with a team who can deliver brand and motion. And then just listen to them. I think motion is I think it's easy to understand because I spend a lot of my life watching TV, a lot of my life watching films. You kind of pick up on themes and kind of um, ways of making things look a certain way, and it's a reflection of like motion design is a reflection of how things move in real life, right? So you want to make something that cute and bouncy, it looks all cute and bouncy, and people kind of get that. It's more emotive, I think. So I think people are more receptive to it because they can see it and understand it. So having a gut feel of what motion they want their brand to have, making sure it's relevant to where their brand appears in the world, and also trusting themselves in that, you know, it looks this way because X, Y, Z, because I want my brand to feel fun and bouncy, or I want my brand to feel serious and established, and the motions to reflect that. So it all comes down to sort of, like you said, those strategic pillars or those kind of brand values that are kind of set in those early stages, and that filters its way all the way through into motion.
Yeah, sounds good. I hope one or two brands actually take that advice to heart and try implementing it, because motion definitely is going to help elevate a lot of things that they have to put out, and yeah, it's definitely going to help them. So, what would you advise designers now who wants to incorporate brand motion into branding? Probably they're brand designers and they want to either have on the skill set of motion or want to start collaborating with motion designers. So what would be your advice on how to go about? Because I'm sure you have experience in that aspect. But
Yeah, definitely. I think just first of all is look at things and figure out why you like them, figure out why they look good, and figure out what it is that the motion brings to it. What is it that the motion um, creates that embellishes and brings to life the kind of idea of the brand? So always like looking at things and like again saving stuff that you like for whatever reason, and then just opening After Effects thing or whatever motion software you want to use. I mean, I predominantly use After Effects, and you open it up and it's a pretty formidable interface. It looks pretty scary. I think just opening it up, trying a few YouTube tutorials, I think and then having someone to lean on, I think is really good. I think one of the things I didn't realize about motion design is that how much like plugins can just save you time and save you stress, and um, they're worth their weight in gold in terms of work processes. So that's what we again try and do on our page, is kind of shed a bit of light into what plugins and scripts people are using to kind of complement their workflow, so that motion doesn't feel like this time consuming, arduous, scary task. So getting on YouTube, looking at a few tutorials, trying stuff out, even if it's the most basic, like just moving things, scaling things, having opacity. That's always the start, and then you can just build from there. Um, if you're able to do online courses as well, I did one through Motion Design School by Emmanuel Colombo, which was amazing. Kind of taught you the basic principles of motion. Really helped me understand and have a better understanding of how to make things move. So I think looking online, seeing what stuff you like, trying stuff out, and then building upon that with some really useful tips, resources, and courses.
Yeah. Mm. Sounds good. Now back to the platform. In the about 4 years that you've been building, what would you say has been the most challenging aspect of building the platform so far?
I think just posting every day, like remembering to post. And I think,
Actually,
yeah, consistency, I think is a big thing. And um, like Winston does an amazing job of like keeping us on track, basically. And he's really diligent and consistent with how often we get content out there and post things. But I think like just posting as much as we do, it's a lot. I'd say it's easier now because of kind of our reach. We get sent more stuff, which is great. But at the start, it was just like finding stuff and like, wow, what should we post today? But when you start looking for it, you kind of find it. And yeah, there's so much great work out there that yeah, it's a kind of rich sea to be fishing in, I guess, really. So yeah, consistency of posting and at first finding what to post.
okay. Yeah, consistency can actually be it can actually be really challenging. Even over here, it's a challenge, but I know we'll surmount that challenge definitely. So,
Definitely,
what are the
definitely.
future goals for the platform? What do you what are you looking to? What do you see in your mind that you want it to become in the nearest future?
So in the near future, we've got a website launching soon, which we're very excited about. So that'll be the kind of our aim for that is to be the sort of motherboard for all things motion design within branding. So it will be a space to find inspiration, kind of like the Instagram page is doing now, but it'll also be a space to find resources. So we're going to kind of really push, interrogate people about like I talked about, what scripts and plugins and workflow they have. Um, keep interviewing people to kind of get their experiences of how they got into that world and what kind of information and advice they can pass on to other people. Also building our sort of tips and tricks and just like things that we've learned throughout the years that we find useful in our everyday, life that we can just help pass on. So I think that's the one that's on the forefront, and our aim is to kind of launch that in the new year. It also very excites me. Will feature a directory of motion designers and motion design studios. So we've had a couple of suggestions from design studio owners that it would be amazing to almost have a little black book of amazing motion talent that people can rely on and help link them up through that. So that's a really exciting aspect of it that we're hoping that will build as it grows, basically. So that's the kind of one that's on the near horizon is the website. And then, I mean, we've talked about tons of stuff like doing conferences, doing courses, awards, and stuff like that. So that's kind of the big dream is to kind of expand that out even further. But the website feels like a great way to start and kind of, yeah, the next step for brands in motion, basically.
Yeah, that already sounds good. Actually kind of excited about the directory for agency owners to link up with reliable talents. I think that's going to help the community
Definitely.
both from
Absolutely.
agency angle and also designer. So yeah, I look forward to seeing those updates in the nearest future. And
Yeah.
how would you where would you say motion within branding is going to next few years? Is it something that would be disruptive, or it's still just going to be like an add-on to branding? Or what would you see your thoughts are around it in the future? I mean, there's AI that's
I
everyone is
think,
talking about now.
yeah,
So
I think, yeah. I mean, I can't see it being too disruptive. I think things will continue as they are because basically, as long as there's screens and as long as there's digital, there'll be motion. So I think that path, from what I can see for the near future, will still be the same. I think the stuff that excites me that I'm starting to see is in that AI motion sphere, but it's more things that will make the more mundane, boring motion tasks more easy to do. So, for example, scaling, if you create a 16 by 9 widescreen video, then you've got to save out, a 3 by 2 or a 1 by 1 for social or whatever, and a 9 by 16 for stories. I think the kind of AI input of it doing it all for you in a successful way and reformatting your video and kind of creating it and spinning it out in all the different formats you'll need. I think that for me would be the most exciting and I guess groundbreaking bit of motion because it would kind of save the motion designer from that boring, mundane task of like getting the different stuff out there. I don't think it will ever replace the skill and the talent of the designer, but I'm really hopeful that it will basically stop us having to all the boring stuff that comes that we don't really want to do. So I think from that point of view, that's the aspect of AI I'm most excited about. But I think just the different places we're able to see screens now as well. I think, for example, the Las Vegas Sphere, having something as large as that as a vehicle for motion is pretty incredible. And then Adobe Max last year or 2 years ago, there was a demonstration of a dress that was all made of screens. So you can imagine clothing that featured motion on. It's just like it's incredible the kind of technology that's happening in that space. So I think, yeah, AI kind of helping make our lives easier, hopefully, and just the depth and broadness of where it can show up. I think is very exciting as well.
yeah, I'm also looking forward to having motion being having to resize motion with AI. That would save a whole lot of time.
Yeah,
And yeah,
exactly.
it's definitely going to take a whole lot of time because it's especially within the branding space and the different screens that motion is needed. If we have that for
Yeah,
After Effects or any tool, I mean that's going to really help a whole lot. So yeah, I'm really
fingers
excited about
crossed.
what's
Yeah, fingers crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed. So I'm really excited about what would come in the nearest future also. And yeah, so I really have exhausted all I wanted to ask. I don't know if you have any final thoughts um, before I let you go.
No, it's been great to chat. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's been really cool to chat through all things motion, all things brands in motion and freelance life so far. So yeah, best of luck with it. I think you'll really enjoy it. And yeah, drop me a line anytime if you want any questions or I'm trying to answer as best I can. But yeah, all the best.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate.